Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday and happy Release Party Thursday. This is my favorite Thursday of the month. For those of you who are maybe new watching here, every month we do a release party because every month we do a VS Code release. So we get to have the engineers and PMs come on and talk about the great features that they worked on this past month. Y'all get a chance to interact with them. It's always a really fun time. And today we're actually doing a little bit different of a release party. We are doing specifically the updates to Copilot Chat that happened in this most recent VS Code release. So there's lots of really great VS Code updates in general, not just Copilot related. So definitely check out our release notes to see everything that's going on. But if y'all weren't aware, GitHub Universe is a conference that started yesterday. It goes into today also. There's lots of really cool news about Copilot coming out in there. So we thought it would be fun for our release party today to kind of align with that and have a cool Copilot focus. So we've got a couple of the engineers on today to show you the latest and greatest of what you can do with Copilot and VS Code. So very excited to have you all here. Let me know where you're watching from. I always like to see how spread out all of our viewers are. It's always a great time. So with that, another thing that we tend to do to start these release parties off is to thank our contributors. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the thank you section that's at the bottom of our release notes. This is something that we put every single month at our release notes. VS Code is open source. We really couldn't do this without our contributors. So we like to just kind of take a second to scroll through these and thank everyone who did contribute to the repos. There's a lot of people. I always want to be able to call people out by name, but we'll just do a scroll through instead because you probably don't want to see me just sit here and read this out to you the whole time. So if you're here and you're on this list, thank you so much for contributing. If you want to be on this list, we have an awesome contribution guide on our repo that you can always check out to be a part of the community. All right. And so we got a couple of chat messages coming through. DC Blog watching from the UK. Thank you so much for joining. From the US, but watching from Mexico. Awesome. Thanks for being here. And then Coder Nerd, always a pleasure to see you here. Thank you for always being here and being part of the release party fun. All right, so with that, I know y'all are here to actually hear from the engineers, so we're gonna go ahead and bring on our first guest, Benjamin.
Hey everyone.
Hey, Benjamin. How you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm good.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you so much for being here. I know we were talking before. I think it's been a while since you've been on one of these, so I thought it'd be fun if you kind of just gave a quick introduction of yourself, what you do on the VS Code team, so all our viewers can kind of get to know you.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, thanks for shouting out to the contributions. I think that's super important, and it's so much fun to be in an open source project that gets so much contributions from open source.
Yeah, it's awesome to see that.
So I've joined Microsoft really in I think 12 years ago when the project started, and wasn't open source, so I know the way since then. And I've been working on all parts of VS Code, mainly Electron integration, so cross-platform support, then also support for web, which of course now powers GitHub Codespaces or GitHub Dev. And more recently, I'm also looking into how to make Copilot Chat better. So that's what my demo is about. So yeah, I can jump right in.
Awesome, let's do it.
So I'm here in a folder. It's actually a VS Code extension that I generated. But I want to talk about first what kind of extensions I installed to get this going. So not surprisingly, I have GitHub Copilot Chat installed as an extension here because this is what drives all the chat integration in VS Code. And there's a new extension that I was involved in, which makes the Copilot Chat experience to support speech-to-text scenarios, right? So we decided to not bundle it with Copilot Chat because it's a very shy and young new extension. So it comes as this bundle here. It's also relatively large. And we are literally trying this out, like how does it work for you? We already got some installs. And what I really want to highlight here is that when you use this extension, your data is actually not leaving your computer. So speaking a bit about the implementation, we are recording the voice and we are computing text on your machine and try to put it in the chat input box. So that's, I think, pretty nice that it doesn't need any internet connection.
Yeah, that's a great call out, because I know a lot of times with things like this, people, get a little iffy about, okay, well, what are you doing with this information I'm giving you? So to hear that it's all locally processed, I think people will definitely like.
So that was really like a design decision that we did from the beginning. And I also want to shout out that AI is not always perfect. So I might be doing a demo here and maybe the text is not 100% right. But what I figured out is actually that if you send that to the chat Copilot, even mistakes are ending up to be okay, because the language model will understand what I'm trying to say. So speaking about Copilot Chat, so you're probably already familiar with this input box that you can see. So here I'm in the chat view that I got. There's also other places how you can trigger chats. So for example, this quick chat experience, and I think they solve different purposes. This one here is maybe more when you don't want to lose your editor context. So it's quick to dismiss from here. And this one is if you're really having lots of text that you want to scan through. And what the speech extension does, it just, in quotes, adds a little icon here, which is this microphone, to enable you to talk to the chat input box and then get the text put in. So before I begin, I will just focus on source code here. So let me open this extension. And maybe I'm coming first to this, so I would like to learn what this is about. So I could actually click on the microphone and then say, what is this project all about? And then the way it works is that once you click on this icon or use a key binding to trigger it, it will show you that it is recording your voice with this little animation. And then when you pause, it will auto trigger that. So the idea is that it tries to find the moment when you stop talking and you wanna commit your choice, right?
That's super handy. Yeah, I was wondering if you were hitting enter there, or if it just kind of naturally was like, okay, he's done with his question. That's really great.
Yeah, so speaking of open source contributions, I just got feedback from a user that for accessibility reasons, it's not so good to just take a certain time and just trigger the chat, because for some persons it might be that it needs more time to talk. And then the open source contribution is to have a setting for this. And this is like a very good example of how we can improve this, even like with contributors, right? So it's all open source, and we accept contributions like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the power of open source.
Exactly. So what's interesting here is because I had this file open, Copilot Chat was actually using it as a reference, right? So it knows my context that I'm in. So it was actually figuring out that this is a VS Code extension, actually, in fact, a Hello World extension that is there to show a message. What we also have is a chat integration inside the editor, which I tend to use most, which is called inline chat. So in all these chat experience, you will find the same microphone icon, right? So you can actually say, for example, create me an integrated terminal using the extension API. And then what's nice here is that because it is inside the editor, it can actually make a suggestion inside the source code, so I don't have to copy that over. And I can just accept it, and then it is committed. And it knows our extension API. So actually, in this case, the suggestion here is a good one. So it's a good way, actually, if you're an extension author, which is just an example, to learn how to use it.
That's awesome.
A little bit about maybe what we are planning with this extension. So right now, this is really the functionality that we have, is literally voice to text. But the library that we are using is actually capable of doing a lot more. So speaking about the future, we think about maybe even like a text to voice interaction, so that you ask something using your voice and you get back a synthesized voice, so that you can have a real conversation audio based with the bot. That's one thing. And then the other thing that we are exploring is voice activation. So for example, if you say, hey, code, could it actually trigger the voice recognition so that you don't have to type anymore? So literally you could just try to say, hey, code, and then you get the input field, and then things are going from there. So that's on the future plan.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. And to your point earlier, you've already gotten some feedback items. So I think it's a great plug. As people are trying this out, let us know what you think, what features would be useful for you. The team's always looking at that stuff and trying to make everything better.
Yeah. I have one more thing in the good old Steve Jobs tradition. So there's one more thing we are trying, and it's so one thing I didn't show was there's an editor for chat. This is yet another way how you can bring up a chat. And the nice thing about this is that this is actually, you can have multiple of these open at the same time, right? And one thing that we are working on right now is that you can move editors out of the VS Code into separate windows. So what we in the team have been exploring is, what is very handy is if you have one of those chat editors always available in a floating window next to you, you can actually use this as your personal assistant that is always available to you. So what I'm showing here is not yet available in stable. We are trying this out in Insiders, but we are confident that we will ship this experience by the next month. So I will try to make it present then in the next release party and talk more about how we're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this, kind of like a teaser of what's to come for stable. But yeah, we would love to have you next month too, to kind of show that once it makes it to stable. On that note, you mentioned Insiders, which is that green VS Code. People are asking in the chat, what is your orange VS Code icon?
That's a very good question. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So I have them all here lined up. So the orange VS Code is called an exploration build. And that is one of the builds which we are manually updating and releasing. And we are mainly using that to test out Electron updates. So an Electron is the framework we are using for cross-platform support on Mac, Windows, and Linux. And it's such a large component inside VS Code that we don't just want to make this change overnight in an Insiders build, because we have many thousand Insiders users, so we don't want to break them. So think about the exploration build as something that we share in GitHub issues, for example, to people that are interested, to test out massive changes on the framework where we really don't think that it is ready for Insiders yet. So typically what we do, we have these exploration builds for 1 month, and then the feature Electron moves into the Insiders build, and then it moves into stable. So from right to left, it's actually a way of staging these kind of updates. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Coder Nerd said, learn something new today. Yeah, I think it's always really cool. People love to kind of hear like the development process in general, what the team decides on, what can make it into which release. That's always really cool to hear. Okay, let me just scroll through these. We got Ace said, woo, that's really nice. Voice to text. Lots of comments about the power of open source. I did have one question too, because we've had a lot of people from all over the world. Does this work in different languages if you're speaking another language?
That's a very good point. I forgot to mention that. So we are currently using a library which is actually from Microsoft provided to us for speech recognition. And it has support for, I think, 30 languages. But the reality is that you would have to have them all at once, and they are relatively large. So currently what we're doing is we ship this with English, but a plan item is actually to have a way to install sort of like language packs for this, similar to what we do for VS Code languages. So that when you switch the language, or when the language is not English in VS Code, or maybe even based on a setting, you could install a speech language pack, and then we would use that. So all the support is actually there. We just haven't shipped that to the marketplace yet, but it's actually a plan item we want to do.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, I know that's always a big plus for a lot of our viewers and users in general. Okay, so there's a couple of more general Copilot Chat questions. Here's one. Is there any part of chat that will identify poor code, such as that which is commonly implemented and creates a memory leak, and then suggest code that will fix the leak?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because today we actually sat together in the team to discuss like cool features that we could have. One of them was actually into the direction of why don't, for example, the pull request extension, why doesn't warn me on my change if something is not looking right, you know? So today we don't really have something that would be automatic in the way that you would get squiggles, but you can certainly ask Copilot, could you please analyze my code, maybe based on a selection in the editor or just the open file, and literally ask what kind of problems do you think there are? And then chances are, because it has an understanding of the sources and the language and the context, that it would actually tell you. But you have to trigger that from chat. We don't currently have that like automatic in a way. But I felt that was actually a very great idea. Like right before I push my changes, maybe I want this kind of feedback automatically.
Right, like a, hey, check this, see if this is, going to be a problem. That's a really cool idea. Cool. That was from Timmy the Termite. So Timmy the Termite, thank you for your question and nice username. Okay. And then there's a couple questions that people actually had for inline chat. What is the keyboard shortcut that you use to open that?
Command I. Yeah.
Yep. So Command I on Mac. If you're on Windows,
Control I. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. And then one more question on just general Copilot. We get this question a lot. Is Copilot better with certain programming languages, or does it work equally well across all programming languages?
I must admit, so actually, to be honest, it's a great question, because I was, for this extension, I had to write some C++ code, and I have to say that's not my day-to-day business. And Copilot was really a game changer for me, right? Because writing in a language that you don't know, or maybe are not so familiar with, it's really like the Copilot taking over and telling you how it's done. So at least from my experience, which is TypeScript 99% and then C++, I couldn't see any difference in terms of how efficient it was. For me, it was like mind-blowing in both ways, like really incredible. So I cannot really say if it's for all languages, right?
Yeah, that's definitely kind of generally the answer, is that, I think for especially a lot of the more common languages, it works really well. My best advice would just be try it out with whatever language you're using. Yeah. Let us know if you're kind of seeing discrepancies. That's kind of the underlying algorithm in general, rather than the Copilot Chat and VS Code experience. So yeah, try it out. Let us know. I think, if you have kind of more obscure languages, there's just not going to be as much training data on that in general. So you might not see as much, but try it out. Let us know. All right, Benjamin, thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you want to show or mention before we head to our next guest?
Oh, that's all I had. Thanks for listening.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thank you for being here. And yeah, I think we'll definitely try to get you on next month as well.
Cool.
All right, take care. And that's gonna bring us to our next guest, Rob. Hey, Rob. Hello. How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for being on here. I know that we've had you on, probably a few months ago now.
Yeah, I
think you showed Copilot stuff then too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. People always love having you here. We already had a lot of just general Copilot questions. And so seeing VS Code speech that Benjamin showed, and then now getting to see a lot of the other features that you all demo, I think people are really into.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, the speech stuff is so cool, and we've got some more cool stuff to show too.
It is. I know. All right. Should we get started? Get the people what they want?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff we've been working on this month. The first thing I want to say is I'm just going to bring up the help menu, and we can start from there. So when I type /help, and it gave me a response which gives me some useful tips for things that I can ask Copilot Chat about. But it also describes all of these special commands that I can use. And so if you've been here in the past, or if you've used Copilot Chat, you've probably seen our / commands. But we changed them up just a little bit this month. And so we still have most of the old / commands that you have from before, but we also have these agents, and these are with an @ sign. So we have @workspace and @vscode, and an agent is like an expert who has some specialized expertise in some certain area. that you can ask about. And so at Workspace knows about the files that are in your workspace. And so you can open a folder and then you can ask it questions, and it's going to sort of be able to understand what's going on in that project. And then at VS Code, it knows about VS Code itself. So VS Code features and settings and other things that you see like in the VS Code window itself. And at Workspace, you might have seen /Workspace before. Now it's at Workspace, but we also made it much smarter this month. And so it's able to do a much better job of understanding your workspace. And so I want to give a couple examples of that. Awesome. And so I have a folder open, which is what I work in every day, which is just the source for VS Code itself. And it's a fairly big workspace. And if you're not super familiar with it, it can be a little difficult to navigate and to find what you're looking for. And if I get into a new feature area, maybe in the past I had to go talk to a senior engineer and ask them where I should be looking at to find the code that I'm looking for. But now at Workspace works really well at helping me get oriented. And so, let's say I am trying to fix a bug in VS Code, and this is our debug viewlet, and I'm looking for the code that handles this breakpoints view here. And I really don't know where to start, but this is just to give an example. So if I have a file open and I set a breakpoint in it, then this is the list of breakpoints that show up. And so I'm looking for that code in the VS Code workspace. And I can just say something like, at Workspace, where is the code that shows a list of breakpoints? And it's going to take a little bit because it is looking through all some of the files in my workspace. But what it's doing here is it's actually asking the LLM. It's giving this query to the LLM, and it's asking it which pieces of information it thinks it needs to see. And so we tell it that it can look for certain files, and it can ask for the contents of those files. It's going to ask for all these pieces of information, and then we're going to use that and feed that into the next prompt to get the real answer. And it's hopefully going to come back with proper context. And sure enough, it said you can find a list of breakpoints in the breakpointsview.ts file, which is correct. And it when it references a file, I can actually click it, and then I can go to that file and see that. And then it tells me a little more about which class I should look at in the file and which different types of renderers there are for the different types of list items in that list.
That's so handy because to your point, like you can get an issue or something that's like, oh, go fix the code here, and you're like, I don't know where this is. Like how am I even going to deal with that? So it's really cool.
Exactly. Where do you start? It's this does a really good job of just giving you that first place to start looking. And it gave me a little extra context too, beyond just like the literal question I asked. And something else that's really useful here is we actually have this list which shows which pieces of context we found and decided to feed into the LLM. And so that can help you interpret this answer a little bit. It can help you see how it came to this answer. And so you can see these are all of the files and ranges within those files that it found. And I can click through these and sort of see which range of that file it decided was relevant.
Okay, cool. So it's like specifically like this chunk of this file. Awesome.
Exactly.
So you have a couple of questions kind of about which files are being used, kind of a couple of related ones. So Walking In asked, is there a way to specify which files Copilot chooses as a reference to our coding question and to exclude, for example, some files as well? And then Wanted Lab has a similar question, asking about privacy. Access to their entire workspace worries them to use on some projects.
There is a way to do this. So you can have an ignore file, and you can specify certain patterns in that file which Copilot will ignore, and that applies to Copilot and also to at Workspace. And so I think that works with, I think it's called .copilot ignore, or is it copilot.ignore now? Sorry, I don't know this exactly off the top of my head. I think it's in the Copilot docs or our release notes. But I think what you can do is say something like this. And then you can probably have a pattern in here that's like, if I didn't want it to look at code in the debug folder, maybe I'll just, you can. I'll just see if it works. I think this is maybe right. But if I do this, I can tell it to ignore certain areas in my workspace, and then it will not look at this.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that was a feature. So if you include files in that Copilot ignore file, then it won't reference those. Basically, then by default, it would reference anything else in your workspace then, correct?
Yeah, and sorry, I think I have the name of the file wrong. So
yeah,
it's
no
somewhere.
worries. Yeah, we can definitely link people to the docs for that. Yeah, but that's really cool just to know that there is a mechanism in place. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was, I think, let us know if we didn't answer your question, but I think that should answer it pretty well for them.
Yeah, and another thing I can show is that I can actually ask a follow-up question, and I can say, if I want to sort of dig in deeper here, I can say, where is its toolbar? And, at Workspace, it still has context about the conversation here. So when I say its toolbar, it should know that I'm kind of asking a follow-up question about the breakpoints view. And it should be able to look at that history and pull that into its context.
Someone said we should ask Copilot how to use Copilot to ignore files. That's very meta and probably would work, honestly.
No, it didn't. It didn't quite get it right this time. It's telling me about toolbars in general. So that's the trouble with the LLM. Sometimes it's a little unpredictable. But yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Copilot demos are always fun because you're like, you'll go through it and you're like, yes, this is giving me exactly what I want, and then you demo it and it's like, not quite.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that's realistic, right?
Yeah.
It's what happens.
Yeah, and also since at Workspace, it's I think this is a pretty common one, like something you'll probably want to ask questions to pretty often. There's a shortcut that we have, and I can actually just type the question like this, and then I'm going to hit Command Enter. And when I hit Command Enter, then we automatically add @Workspace for you, and we send it to @Workspace. Cool. And so that's a little shortcut that we have. Nice.
That's a nice little trick. I didn't know that.
Okay, and it's going in the same direction this time, so we don't have to see that.
That's awesome.
And so then I also mentioned that we have all of these slash commands, and so these are just more commands that you can use where we've identified this particular scenario and tried to sort of optimize our prompt for that. And you can always just type and natural language, the model will do a pretty good job. But if you pick one of these, it might do just a little bit better. And so one that I would like to call out is /explain. And /explain is going to look at your selected code, and it's going to try to explain it to you. And we made it just a little bit better this month, and now it's actually going to look at references of other functions that you've used in that selection. And it's going to sort of go and find the definition of that function, and it's going to pull that in, and it's going to use that as context when it explains the code. And so it can do an even better job of actually understanding what a piece of code does. And I want to demo this just with a really simple sample, because I really want to drive home kind of exactly what it's doing here. I think it's cool, but if I overwhelm you with some complicated piece of code, I think it's sort of hard to follow. So I'm going to pull up this piece of code. This is pretty simple. So I see that it's doing something with the date, which I don't know exactly what this means, and then it's going to call this function. And just looking at this code, I don't know what that function actually does. But I can say /explain, and I can also add another question here. So I want to say, since I know it does something with the date, what does it do on Saturdays? And right away, you can see in this references menu that it's looking at hello.ts. So it looked at the definition of this file, and it also looked at main.ts with my selected code. And sure enough, it's saying that on Saturdays when this number is 6, so I don't have to sort of look up, what the actual, which day do we start the week on? It's going to do that, and then it's going to print hello world. So that's apparently what the hello function does. And so if I do go to definition on this, I can confirm that yes, that is actually what this function does. And but Copilot is able to go and look at the definitions of those functions and figure that out for me.
That's awesome. And I feel like it's one of those things that when you think about it, I actually like a lot that you did kind of this simpler example, because there's still so much going on under it just by you literally just typing /explain and it going through and pulling that in to get you the most comprehensive answer. I think that's really cool. One question I did have, so I think that you did just hit /explain and it seemed like it kind of automatically pulled in that agent into the prompt. Is that what usually happens when you just go straight to the / command?
Yes, thanks for picking up on that. So besides having to type out this whole thing, I can type @workspace and then /explain. We also have another shortcut, which is that I can just type / And then I'm going to see all of the slash commands that are available across all of the agents. And so I can see, here which agent they belong to, and then the other ones like help and /clear that are global. But I can look at this list and browse this and find something that looks like what I want, and then I'm just going to hit tab to accept that. And yeah, then we insert the full @workspace/explain. So that's just a pretty easy way to get here, which is a couple keystrokes.
Nice. Yeah, that's super handy, especially if you were using slash commands before and you're kind of getting used to agents. You don't have to remember, oh, now explains in workspace. You can still just keep doing /explain. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
so
We got a lot of, I was
yeah.
just going to say, we've got a lot of people are saying sweet. People are saying they didn't know about this. You learn a lot in the release parties. Cool stuff. Amazing job. So yeah, lots of love for these features.
Awesome. Great. Let's get into the inline chat a little bit because we've got some new things there too. And so I'm going to open up this file, and I want to get this out of the way for now. I want to say have function to calculate Fibonacci numbers. And so one new thing that you're going to see here as soon as I press enter is that now we are actually streaming the code that comes from the inline chat suggestion. Like as it's streaming into the editor as it's available. So instead, before we were, waiting for the full response to be available, then put it in the editor all at once. You're going to be able to kind of see it as it comes in, which is a really nice experience.
Oh yeah, nice. It's kind of like, it's more natural, almost just kind of seeing it type across.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm watching my Copilot type all the code for me. It's great.
Yeah. Just sit back and relax, have a drink.
Exactly.
Let it do it.
Yeah, and then I can even ask follow-up questions here, kind of asking it to modify this code somehow, and it sort of has the code and the conversation in context. So awesome. I could say this. I don't want to have a recursive function. I just want to have one that uses the loop. Yep, and it was able to do that, no problem. Got my nice Fibonacci function now, but I don't like those variable names, A, B, C. I think we can do better than that. So I'm just going to ask it to make them better.
Whoa. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Just kind of seeing it adjust its own suggestion.
Yeah, awesome. So you saw it just kind of type over what it already had and just replace the things that need to be replaced. And that was really nice. And this is good to me, so I'm just going to hit Command Enter to accept that. And now I've got it.
Cool. People are saying, Ollie says, the new experience of inline suggestion is way better than before. So loving the improvements. There was actually one question back on the agents. And he asked, will developers be able to develop their own agent ever?
We have some extension API for this. And it's something that you can play with today if you'd like. It's in a proposed state, which means that you can't release an extension that uses that to the marketplace. But you can use it, and you can try it out, and you can try to build an agent. And if you have some good idea for what you would like to do with an agent, I would love to see it. A starting place for you, if you're looking for what you need to do that, is to there's a section in our documentation about how to use API proposals, and that's like the place to get started. But then the specific proposal that you want to look at is called Chat Agents 2. Don't ask why there's a 2. This is just the one that you want to use. And so you create your agent. You start from here. I won't read the whole API, but you start from here. You essentially just have a callback. We're going to call you when the agent is invoked. And then you can either return a response or talk to like a model directly, or you can use the chat. What is it? Request. Well, there's another proposal that you can use to get access to the Copilot Chat agent. And I will give the disclaimer that I don't have any guarantee as to when this is going to be something, or if it's going to be something that we stabilize and make available to the public. It's just something that you can play around for right now. And you won't be able to publish an extension like that in the near future, but it could be kind of fun to play with. Yeah,
totally. That was a good question, Ollie. Thanks for asking that. And then Doug, hey Doug, says great stuff. He would love a party where Microsoft also shows how we made the agents like workspace smarter. So I think, there's definitely opportunity to kind of do a deep dive. These release parties are great for driving awareness of the features and asking questions about that, but there's so much going on that I think people love to kind of be able to pick your brain, Rob, and the rest of the engineering team to kind of see how we get to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to show on Copilot? This is all so great.
Yeah. So now that we've made a change, I'm going to go over here, get rid of this for now, and I'm going to commit it. And in the past, I would have had to type out a commit message manually, which is just so much work. Now we've got this little sparkle button here, and it's going to actually have Copilot Chat generate the commit message for me based on the changes I made. This is a pretty simple change, so it should be able to do a good job here. And yeah, sure enough, it correctly described that I am adding a Fibonacci function to numbers.ts. That's exactly what it did. So I'm going to commit that.
This has been like, I feel like it's one of those things that when people realize it's there, they're like, oh my gosh, this is such a lifesaver. Because I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I'm very guilty of commit messages or just like, fix this.
Exactly.
Try again. Pushing for real. Like,
yeah.
So just to have that is super handy.
Yeah, it's so nice to have something that just kind of summarizes those changes. And, of course, it's really important to, make sure that if there's like some other important context, I need to describe that so that my team can see it. But there's a lot of times when you just have to make some commits and maybe that, you'll describe it in an issue or the pull request later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also want to show that I can go and create a pull request now. And so this is using the GitHub pull request extension from the marketplace that our team puts out. And by default, it put in the name of the commit there, but I just want to show you that you can also use this button in the pull request. And it's going to look at all the commits that are in my pull request or that are in this branch. And it's going to do something similar. It's going to look at the titles and try to summarize them. And it's going to look at the diff. And yeah, so again, it came up with a pretty nice description there. Got a title and then description that goes into a little more detail. So that's really nice.
That's awesome. That's so handy. And like you said, especially for like kind of simpler changes like this. Yeah, definitely always for like any sort of Copilot suggestions, always review them just to make sure, like Rob was saying, if there's certain context that you think your team needs to know about. That's just always remember Copilot is the Copilot, you are the pilot. So yeah, just always kind of review those suggestions to make sure it is, giving you what you expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I think you're actually going to show this. Someone actually just asked, how well does Copilot integrate into the built-in terminal, which I think you're actually going to be showing, if not now, then soon. So that is next. Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even plan it. That was all just natural.
Nice segue. Yeah. Yeah. So we've got some new features for using Copilot in the terminal here that are really nice. And so the first thing I'm going to do, let's say I'm trying to use Git through the terminal, and I typed this, and I got an error from DShell. It says, "Oops, I had a typo," and maybe I copied and pasted this from somewhere else. I'm not sure what I'm doing or something else, but essentially, anytime that I run a command and it completes with a non-zero exit code, which means that there was an error, then you're going to see this sparkle button here, and I can click this and see these terminal quick fixes, and I can say explain using Copilot. I'm going to hit this, and you see we're seeing @workspace/explain again, and this time it's using a variable, which is the hash sign. So the only variables we have right now are related to the terminal, but it's asking Copilot to explain the last terminal command. Sure enough, it thinks there was a typo. GAT is not a valid command, and it figured out that what I probably wanted was git commit, and it's telling me how I can git commit. And something really nice is that now that it gave me the proper suggested command, since it knows that this is a terminal command, it's showing this button, which is run in terminal. And so all I have to do is I can click this, and it's going to just paste this command into the terminal, and I can review it. And then if I want to, I can hit enter, which I don't have any changes, so it's not going to work, but it's a nice little feature. And so this goes for any command that fails. And so typos are where I run into this quite a bit. If I maybe ran an npm command and it doesn't know what I mean by that. And then again, I'm going to see, we actually extracted some quick fixes from npm's suggestion too, but I can also just have it explain this to me. And another nice thing is that if I'm just looking at some terminal output and I'm not sure what it means, then let's say I have this, and I did a git log, and I'm not really sure how to read this. I can actually go and select anything in the terminal. And I can right click and I can say, Copilot, explain this. And it's going to be able to just explain that selection in the terminal.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it's another one of the variables. So we saw that, I think, last terminal command or something, then terminal selection as those two variables.
Yeah, we've got terminal last command and then terminal selection.
Nice.
And so here it was able to identify that this is a get log output, and it knows some things about get log. And so it's able to tell me what this means and kind of how to interpret it. And it's even then kind of summarizing each commit for me, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, that's super handy. And like, honestly, I mean, we saw this in the other demos as well. What I love is you can just be like, okay, right click explain, or I click the sparkle, go to explain. It will then bring into the chat view what you need, like the prompt already kind of filled in there. So you don't have to worry about, okay, I'm going to explain this. Now I need to go over here and like try to remember what those explain commands are. It's super user friendly to be able to say, okay, I don't know what this means, so I need someone to explain it to me. And then you just kind of naturally go through that process with it going that underlying. I think that is so powerful.
Yeah,
really cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Doug says that.
Yeah, I've already used this a whole bunch, and I found it really easy to use. It's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Ollie also says you can press Control-I to ask Copilot how you can do something. So I'm assuming he means in the context of the terminal. Are you able to use inline chat for terminal as well?
So we don't have any inline chat thing in the terminal itself, but that's a very nice segue to the next thing I was going to show for the terminal, which is that we do have a slash command for this. And so you can do it through the panel chat. And I'm also just going to hide this for now. I'm going to show off the quick chat also, since that hasn't come up yet. So I can hit Command-Shift-I. And this is going to be kind of the same experience that you see in the panel chat, but it's in this nice sort of picker thing that is just like an overlay on whatever I'm doing. So it's nice for like asking these quick questions. And we have another slash command, which is @workspace/terminal. And I can use this to ask it how to do things in the terminal. And it's going to generate a command for me. And so like one thing that I can never remember the syntax for is this. So I'm basically trying to do like a complicated rebase here, and every time I have to do something like this, I have to go read all the documentation, and it's kind of confusing. I think I didn't do a good job of explaining it. It didn't come up with the rebase command. I'll just say. Yeah, exactly. It's this onto thing that always gets me. And so same deal. I've got this. It suggested the command for me. It knows all about how to do things with common tools in the terminal, and I can click this button and get that in the terminal. And you know, it's not going to submit that command for me. It still gives me the chance to maybe edit it if I realize I want a different branch or do something else, or just review it. But once I do that, then I can hit enter and accept that command and type. It's obviously that's not the branch I'm on, so it's not real, but that's how you can do that.
Nice. That's super handy. And then, yeah, Ollie and Jorth are saying that if they do select something in the terminal and then just do Control-I, I think you just showed, well, you're on a Mac, so Command-Shift-I, that they do still get inline chat with terminal. Yeah, that basically. Yeah.
Oh, like this? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we have that shortcut for going to /terminal. I didn't realize we have that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's what's so cool with Copilot. I mean, even like, I go through the release notes every month, obviously, because I'm on the team. And so I like to know what's going on. And like, even in these release parties, I learned so much. I feel like that's what's really cool with Copilot is people can all kind of find the workflow that makes sense given the context that they want to be in. So I feel like it's always, fun to kind of see how everyone is using this for their most productive workflow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really nice flow. Yeah, you hit Command-I, and then you can say files in order of size. And then I've got it right here.
Nice. All right, one question. on the terminal in Copilot, will Copilot come up with inline IntelliSense suggestions for the terminal? So kind of like that ghost text. They say they hate the terminal and always forget what flag does which thing in what package, etc.
Yeah, we don't have that right now. That would be a pretty nice thing to look into, though.
Yeah, good plug for, I think we mentioned in Benjamin's session too, always looking for feedback. If you have any sort of feature requests, the repo, when you file an issue, it's not just necessarily for filing bugs, it's also for feature requests too. So if there's anything that you think would be really helpful, definitely head over to there and let us know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right. We've got a couple of other, please remember to be nice to Copilot.
You do have to be nice to, I always say thank you whenever I can.
Yeah.
And I like to say please.
Let them know that they're doing a good job. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. I love that. I love when we get some good, wholesome Copilot content. Okay. And then just another question to reiterate. What was that keyboard shortcut that you used to open Copilot in the quick chat?
Yes, thanks. The quick chat key binding is on a Mac, Command-Shift-I. I think it's Control-Shift-I on Windows. So you can just hit that, or you can click up here and say open quick chat like that.
Nice. And then Walking In asked, can we link the repo for an issue request in the feature suggestion? Also kind of built-in feedback mechanisms within VS Code as well, right? That can kind of just take you to there easily. Would you mind demoing the best place if people want to do that?
Yeah, a nice way to be able to report an issue or a feature request or whatever you have is to go to the help menu and say report issue. And you can either have this go, you probably couldn't see that because I'm only sharing one window.
I was going to say, are you showing something? Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry. It pops up in a different window.
Oh, right. So you're just showing the window. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just have to describe it for now, but it's going to pop up another dialog. And from there, you can either file a bug or a feature request directly on VS Code, or you can pick an extension from your list of installed extensions and that'll give you a form, and then it'll when you click submit, it'll take you to the right GitHub repo, either for VS Code or for that extension, and file the GitHub issue. And so that's a pretty convenient way to do that, especially if you're not sure which GitHub repo you need to go to or what the deal is.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so Walking In, great question. I always forget that there is kind of that built-in feedback mechanism in VS Code, which makes it really easy. One, you don't have to remember where all these repos are. Two, you don't have to leave the context of your editor. And three, it's pretty easy just to do it just from within there and go through those steps. And like Rob was saying, kind of figure out where exactly the issue or feature request best fit.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so I think I think I've gotten to all the questions, but if I've missed any, because we got a lot of chat messages, definitely let me know. Alessandro says, can you ask Copilot to open the issue? I don't know if it can go that far.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. Maybe next month we'll see.
Okay, and then another general Copilot question. How well does Copilot understand my coding style, like not using braces around single lines, for example?
Yeah, so when it's generating code for you, then it's generally looking at the other code in that file or in other files for context. And I think the model does a great job of picking up on coding styles and being able to match that and make code fit in.
Nice. Will it pick up on tabs versus spaces?
I think so, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I would also recommend hooking up, a formatter in VS Code. And then when this code gets inserted, it can just be automatically formatted with Pretty or with some other formatter according to your own preferred styles.
True. Okay. And then another question they asked, is Copilot Quick Chat a beta feature? They're on the stable Copilot extension of VS Code, but they don't see Copilot Quick Chat.
If you are up to date and you have the latest VS Code stable and the latest Copilot Chat extension, then you should see it. And if you're not seeing it, then you could open an issue about that on VS Code repo, and we can try to figure out what's happening. Yeah,
I would definitely say if you're not seeing any sort of Copilot Chat, just double check that you have the Copilot Chat extension installed as well, not just the Copilot. So that could be it. But yeah, if you're just not seeing Quick Chat, definitely file an issue if you're kind of seeing that recurring happening. Okay, and then this is not necessarily super related to what you did, but kind of it's Copilot related. People are asking about the Copilot CLI. Do you have any kind of information you'd want to share about Copilot CLI? I know it's kind of separate than Copilot Chat and the extensions.
Off the top of my head, no, I don't. I don't know exactly where that's at. I don't have. I'm not on top of the list.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, that's always something that we can look into. I just figured, yeah, I had you here. I'd ask. Okay, I mean, this was literally so much amazing stuff. Is there anything else that you want to show or talk about that is on the roadmap for Copilot and VS Code?
We're just working on getting all this stuff even better, and encourage everyone to try it out, and let me know how it goes for you.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah, definitely use those feedback mechanisms. I know some of y'all have kind of put some suggestions in the chat throughout this. That's always stuff that we kind of, internally take and make note of. So thank you for being here and kind of giving that. All right. Well, thank you, Rob. As always, it was a pleasure. That was so much stuff. I feel like I learned so much every time in these release parties, just, even further than what's in the release notes. There's always so many great questions we get from the chat. So thank you all for participating in that. And then Rob, thank you so much for being here to kind of show off a lot of those really cool features.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I always have so much fun here.
Of course. All right. Well, with that, that's going to conclude, kind of our special edition of the release party focusing on Copilot updates. Like I mentioned, the VS Code release includes more than just Copilot updates. So definitely check out our release notes to see everything good that was included in there. There's lots of great stuff from accessibility to some editor workbench changes. So check that out for sure. I think we had a question a little bit earlier on asking how you can learn a little bit more about best practices for Copilot, a little bit more about the features. There's a lot of great documentation, but I also want to do a plug for our YouTube channel. So the VS Code YouTube channel, we put a lot of Copilot content on there as well, kind of standalone videos. We just posted one kind of giving the highlights from this release, but then we also do standalone videos of, for example, using Copilot to solve a coding problem. And there's going to be a lot of other great stuff kind of coming out over the next few months as well for that. So make sure to subscribe there because that's a great way to kind of see what's the latest given our videos. We also post shorts that are related to Copilot, and then anything VS Code. All these channels are VS Code in general, so it's not just Copilot content. So definitely make sure to check that out. We cross-post those shorts on our TikTok channel as well. As always, thank you so much for being here. I love getting a chance to be a part of this and getting a chance to interact with you all. So we'll see you next week for another live stream and next month for another release party. Thanks, y'all.